Hi again.
Hello.
Long time no see.
Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah,
People are
sure.
gonna see these videos and be like, "Well, does he ever change his clothes?"
I know, really. Oh, that's funny. And yes, you do. What does Eric have? Eric, what are you wearing today?
He's got overalls on.
Overalls.
I have never seen him in overalls.
Neither me.
And he's got a he's got a piece of hay or like, dried wheat
Oh,
sticking
you
out of
like
his mouth.
Farmer Eric?
That's exactly the way he looks.
Because Paul Walker was talking about farms. Maybe you just got it with
Oh,
your
yeah,
head.
maybe that's why, yeah.
Is that it?
He said, "No, Mom, I'm just letting you know I'm just relaxed."
Oh, good. All right. Well, let's ask you some more
Got
questions.
some hairy feet.
Oh my gosh. Now, hunting. What do you think about hunting?
Oh, well, that's probably why he showed up in
Oh,
the
maybe.
overalls.
Maybe. What do you think about hunting animals? I just have had friends that I go into their house and there's a wall with all sorts of heads of animals, and it's just so sad. And I can sort of get behind, like, if you don't have anything to eat, hunting humanely, killing the animal, being thankful to it, etc. before you eat it. But just give me your thoughts. Nobody wants to hear my thoughts. Let's hear yours.
He said, "Mom, he said some people might think this is, I hope callous is the word he used. Callous is like what, thoughtless or heartless?
Yeah.
Uh, he said, but it's really not. He said, from a spiritual perspective, everything is about, agreements, right?
Okay.
So, if a person is inclined to go and kill for sport, they're not killing uh, for food or whatever. It's just
Right.
purely to get their rocks off, right?
Yeah, I know.
He said, well, from a collective perspective, human beings can see that, and collectively we can learn the
Oh, wait a
value of
minute.
all.
I don't think it's recording. Oh, actually, it was recording, but call recorder didn't show up. So I'll splice these two together. I hope I
Okay.
remember. Um,
Uh,
all right. So hunting.
yeah. Eric said, so what I was saying about hunting was the screen just like went black.
I know. It did something weird. Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that.
Uh, anyway, he said, so hunting, he said, uh, to restate what I said earlier, he said, it's, and not to sound callous, but, it's about agreements, right, between souls. So, to help the individuals themselves learn lessons, but also collectively. So if someone's going around killing for sport because, they get their rocks off that way, uh, he said collectively as a human being, it teaches us um, the value of all lives,
Hmm.
right? No matter what species, And slowly over time, we'll evolve into understanding that, they are emotional beings just like we are.
Mm.
It's very arrogant to think that they're not.
Yes.
Right? And even the individual themselves, maybe from having experienced a lot of outrage and hostility at their actions, you know, they might become defensive, naturally might come defensive from the get-go, but somewhere along the way, they'll start thinking about what they did,
Hmm.
start, because of the conflict that was created by their actions. And then, maybe while they're still here on the physical world, have a different perspective on all that, right? He said throughout human history, um, he says, hunting was always used to provide food,
Hmm.
right? But he said, I'll just give you a little bit of history on why it turned into a sport thing.
Okay.
Humans are competitive naturally,
Mm.
right? And males in particular, they're very competitive, right? So he said, they do all those kind of things because, they think uh, unconsciously it's going to get them fucked, get them laid. That's the
Okay.
word. Sorry. Right? Sorry, you just maybe kind of shocked me when I said that word. Anyway, uh, so, he said it kind of gets them a little bit worked up,
Hmm.
right? It gets that testosterone flowing. So, he says, so it's coming from a gladiator competitive kind of a place,
Hmm.
you know. He said nobody's really at their core on a soul level a total asshole.
Mm.
Really, they're not. Even the ones that sometimes when you talk to them, and maybe they're a bit more negative, because there are spirits that can project a negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
They're really not assholes.
Okay.
Seemed like he was rambling on that one, but anyway,
No, I got it.
he said, "So does that make sense, Mom?
Yeah.
Did I answer the question well? Okay."
So basically it turned into a sport because of competition.
Yeah.
Competition not for survival, but competition to be the better guy.
Yeah, to be the top man on the totem pole, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it
You know,
ever a spiritual contract to learn something or teach
he's,
something?
he said, yeah, when I mentioned earlier, he said, when it comes to the forward evolution of the species of humanity,
Mm-hmm.
it's to understand that humans aren't the only ones that have feelings.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't the only ones whose lives matter.
Okay.
All life matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
at this point in human evolution, that's what we're learning.
Mm-hmm.
Because he said, going forward, we're going to recognize that we're going to be drawn away from taking the life of something else to provide ourselves sustenance. Yeah.
Okay.
So he said, so in the future, he says that stuff's just going to become less and less.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Here's another one from a person. When
He
Erik
said, oh,
goes,
really?
a real person.
He said, it's a real person?
A real person, a blog member. When Erik goes to the other dimensions, do the people, air quotes, he meets appear in the form of their particular dimension? And does he appear to them as Erik or some generic beings of light sort of appearance for all? Or do they all look like just beings of light?
He said earlier in earlier in our conversation, I was talking about how things are about perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he said, so if I'm encountering another being from another dimension, and my perspective is to project, to see them in the way that I need to see them, then I will see them that way, depending on what my mood is, right? If I'm feeling like Erik and I want to see a hot chick, a hot girl, right, with big tits,
of course.
well, then I might want to see it that way, right? Mm-hmm. And that individual will understand where my perspective is coming from, and we'll work collaboratively together to give me what I want and to give them what they want, right?
Okay.
But he says, within there, he said sometimes that happens, but he said, really what usually happens is it's a mix of the two, right? Okay. So I may see, them that in partially from my perspective and partially from theirs, right? It happens in so many different ways, he said.
I can imagine.
Yeah, sometimes he said they can show themselves how they would have appeared in in their version of the physical world.
Okay.
But he says, really, ultimately, when you're over here, you can you kind of become like, what's the word? Uniform.
Okay.
Like, so he says a lot of times, it'll just kind of show it self that way.
So like a beam or ball of light, that sort of thing?
Yeah, he said, how do I describe it? Sometimes it can be a beam or a ball of light. He said there's just not one way to say how it happens, really.
Well, what do you usually peer to around your spirit buddies? What do you look like to them?
Be serious.
Him? No.
No, he can't be serious.
No.
Because he said, that's why the reason I asked him to be serious is because he said, I show them myself as a chicken dressed in a red uniform.
Uh-oh. Oh. Lucas calling. Oops.
Yeah.
Okay.
He said he showed himself as a chicken in a red uniform. Like that.
Oh, stop, Lucas.
But anyway, he said, what's the thing that I most see them as? He said, I guess if I could take everything together and lump it all into something that shows the most common thing that I see, it would just be wisps of energy.
Okay.
And they're all multicolored and shit like that.
Wow.
Just real pretty psychedelic shit.
What are some of these people, these beings from other dimensions? Can you describe a couple of them? Somebody wants to know?
He said,
And
"How do
then
you?"
I have one more
Yeah.
question-ish thing
He
to
said, "Let
ask
me."
after that.
He said, "I'm gonna have to think on that one because he said if I describe it, I'm gonna have to put it in human terms, and they aren't the beings that I see,
Yeah.
that I experience are not human, right?"
Okay.
So he said, "So I have to think of it that way."
Well, you
'Cause-
can just name one.
yeah,
One that's do you think would fascinate us the most?
he's showing me visuals because he told me that that's going to be the easiest way to describe it.
Okay, then you can describe it. What he's given you.
Well, it's very, very pretty. It's like a okay. So they have like a silvery, shimmery. There's silver and gold and white, other colors that I can't even describe. They almost look like if you ever looked at something that looks. Uh, there's been other beings he's mentioned this before, that, like an iridescence to him.
Yeah, is it
And
like an opal, like opalescent or something? Iridescent?
yeah, that's not the only thing though. There's like all these other different colors too.
Oh,
But the way that they look, it's uh, it's like shimmery and it's like wispy and smoky and um, it looks like, how could you describe it? Like
well, that's a pretty good
like
description.
yeah, like if silver were in a cloud.
Oh,
Right?
wow, interesting.
So it's like that, but then there's like these crystalline structures that go out with interspersed that appear to be solid, but they're not solid.
Wow.
Okay, that's a good analogy. Erik says the movie Abyss.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? He said, you remember the creature in there that could take a shape that it was made out of water, right? And it looked
Mm-hmm.
solid
Mm-hmm.
and it looked kind of silvery, right? He said, so imagine that kind of a form, but around it is all this cloud, silver as if it were in a cloud,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or gold as if it were in a cloud, because all those colors are intermixed. It's like an iridescence
Mm-hmm.
interspersed within that cloud.
Wow.
So that's, he says, are the coolest ones he's encountered. He likes those the best.
Oh, that's awesome. Are they nice?
Uh, well, I was just asking him to elaborate. He said, well, yeah, they're really, really cool. Well, you would say that. He said, and they're really totally into getting high.
Oh, yeah, of
Sorry.
course. Of course. Well, one last question on this, and then I want to ask about the spirit phone, and then we'll close off. Is their afterlife different, or do all beings have the same afterlife?
No, no being has the same afterlife. He said, Mom.
Okay,
Yeah,
so they don't like people beings from planet X don't die and go to the same dimension you're in.
we all go to the same dimension,
Oh,
but
okay, that's I
yeah,
guess what I meant. You have a
yeah,
different afterlife based on what kind of reality you create for
right.
yourself there
And what it is you need,
and what you need. Okay.
right?
But it's
So
all the
he's
same dimension. Everybody,
all the
everybody
same.
in every universe goes to the same dimension when they die.
Yeah. But
Oh, interesting.
he said the only thing though that there is very similar, he said exactly the way it is in the physical world though, there is a collective experience
Uh huh.
that everybody can participate in.
Oh.
Because he said, if everybody's going through their own heaven, their own version of heaven, you could feel, you could get a sense of isolation in that, right?
Sure.
Because it's just you in your own little heaven.
Yeah.
You can have that. In fact, that's what a lot of people do when they need to separate and, do their own little uh, self-examination, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
But there is a collective experience too,
Okay.
and in that collective experience, he said, we all agree to what the forms will be that we use,
Okay.
and we show ourselves up as that universal form, which most humans would say is light.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Last question. Spirit phones. People really want to pick up on this subtle light energy and hear from them and all that. What frequency range do we need to probe? I mean, give a really narrow range if you can. And also, well, this is a separate question. They asked if he leaves these EVPs on purpose, and why do some of your words record and not everything you say? So let's just start out with a frequency for the spirit phone.
Well, first thing he did is, hello,
From
it's
the other
me,
side.
it's me. I was wondering. When you first said spirit phone, that's why I laughed earlier, because he was like,
Hello.
hello.
Adele song?
It's me. I was wondering.
That's funny.
Oh, Lord.
Belt it out, Robert. You got a nice voice.
Oh,
And so many people are going to listen to it, do now.
oh, God.
Oh, boy.
I'm
So,
sorry, peeps. Uh,
so, so back to.
all I heard when it came to the frequency was, so I know nothing about this, so this is all on faith with
Okay.
what Eric said. Just like everything he does, I have to take
Yeah,
it on
you got to
faith.
go roll with the punches.
Yeah, the number he belted out was 34.7.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Okay.
So whatever frequency,
Is it
whatever.
megahertz or hertz? Or kilohertz? Or do you even know? Do you want to?
He said people that are inclined to follow that,
They
they're
will
going to
know.
know. They'll
Okay.
know.
All right. And so do you leave your EVPs on purpose? Because you've left so many of them on these YouTubes and, of course, radio shows.
He said everything I do is on purpose, Mom. Sure.
Okay.
And the words that I leave for them are the words they were supposed to hear.
Ah.
Right? Because he said what I like to do. He said this is really fun to me because I like to fuck around and
Oh, yeah.
fool with people, trick. But at the same time, I like to get them to think too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he said, so I'll sit there and I'll leave these little messages that might say one word and then it's garbled and then there'll be another word because I like to make them think, right?
Okay.
What was going on, right? You use your fucking head that way, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't just sit there and completely spew everything out for you so that you then know without having to think about it what it
Mm-hmm.
meant, right?
Sure.
And then he says, it's my little way of getting you to start using your own intuition at the same time you're critical thinking.
Mm. Well, why can't you just record everything that you say?
He said, because of what I just said, Mom, I'm teaching
I
you
mean,
something.
but can you just not do that anymore? Because it's annoying.
He
Why can't you
laughed.
just go ahead and?
He said, Mom, when have I ever not been annoying? He said,
I know.
just ask Michelle.
Just at least on one radio show, it'd be so cool if you just said everything. But maybe it's not
He,
possible.
he said, look, um, he said anything is possible, right? He said, I'll make a promise to you that I will do my best if my other guides allow me, because, right? He says, I'm not just doing this all on my own,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So he said, so I'll see if we can't get something that comes out, um, a full sentence.
Okay.
Right?
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So last but not least,
Oh, I'm
sometimes
sorry.
you.
He just said something else though. He said, by the way, he said, there are some limitations on how clear the message can be because of the current state of human technology.
Oh,
But
okay.
he said, so there are some people who, well, I don't know if it's already existing. He's leading me to believe that it's getting ready to come, where people can take something that is an EVP and clean it up so that the static or distortions that
Ah.
just naturally happen through the different shifting of patterns,
Mm-hmm.
of sound waves or whatever energy there is,
Mm-hmm.
can be cleaned up.
Okay.
It's like cleaning up a video that's, grainy.
Yeah. Okay.
Something like that.
Now, sometimes your voice sounds like you. My mother recognizes the sound of her own kid's
Oh,
voice,
gosh.
but sometimes it sounds like somebody else's voice. Why is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Before he answers that, he said, this is one of the lessons that I was talking about earlier. He said, right? He said, so I give you information and you only hear a sentence or two and then it's garbled, right? He said, well, guess what? That's actually one of the ways that we're teaching you how to be able to clean that up and further human evolution from a technological perspective.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then your question was, why do I hear you
Yeah, why do
sometimes
you
as
sound like
yourself?
you, Eric, the Eric I remember, and sometimes you sound like somebody else?
Yeah. He said, because is to make you aware of the fact that I'm not just Eric, right? I've had a lot of lifetimes as all different kinds of people. And so you hear me, and sometimes as Eric as a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you see me as Eric as a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you hear me as other voices, right? But it's still all me.
Okay.
Because he said,
So,
he said, there have been times people have heard my voice, you included, where it didn't sound like me, but you knew it was me. You could feel
oh
it,
yeah.
right? He said, I'm teaching you that I take many different forms and sound many different ways.
All these lessons, ugh, they're so boring
Because he said
and annoying.
he said it's to expand your mind, though, right? He said
Okay.
because the one thing that is constant in the universe is change. The one thing that never stays consistent is form.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, but one person said that on analyzing, for example, when you said minions on the radio show recording really loudly, that you were using my vocal tones to create that. Is that true or not?
He said what really was going on is, okay, he says, I have a very strong connection to your energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he said, I can, because I already have that connection, I can use the energy you have along with mine and project something out.
Okay.
So he said, so that I think is where they're coming from is
Okay.
on some level they realize it's some kind of collective effort.
All right.
He said, now Jamie's still a part of that too,
Mm-hmm.
and so are the other people who might be in the room, but
Mm-hmm.
it's strongest with you.
Okay. Oh, that's so sweet. I love you.
He said, I love you too, Mom.
Well, thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Even if you didn't, please just go ahead and do it. You know you want to. And Robert, I want to thank you so much. This has been just absolutely wonderful.
It was fun. Yeah.
It's
And
fun.
he
And
was particularly calm today too, because when I've done
yeah.
these with phone calls, I have
Mm-hmm.
to pace and all this other stuff. I had asked him, please, when we channel, be a little calmer, because
Yeah, so
I
you
get
don't
worn out
feel
after.
like you have to pace all the time. Yeah, awesome. All right, well, thank you. I love you, Erik. Come visit me.
He said, I'm there already. You know that.
Okay, I love you.
He's like,
Bye.
he said, bye. He's